Hello. It's where you say hello as well.
Hello.
Okay, good. We established that. Hello. Welcome to, so remember, the Douglas Fir Association, the inaugural episode. I think that's what inaugural means. The first episode, the beginning, the introduction. Me and Matticus Tattooi, me, Luke, RazorwireReviews. We've been friends for years. Matt's recently come back to YouTube. He's a bit of a resurgence and a return to the Blu-ray collecting world. And we've
Yep.
been chatting about stuff, and Twin Peaks came up. I love Twin Peaks. I think you love Twin Peaks, or you did when you first watched it.
Yeah. From vaguely what I can remember,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
and then this is where the whole idea comes from: is that I've seen all of Twin Peaks. You have not, and
Yep.
so you were kind of intrigued to kind of dive back in and start from the beginning. I'm itching, had been itching for years to do a rewatch of the whole thing, so it just kind of converged. And we thought, wow, maybe we could do a video. Maybe we could do a series, and that's just how my brain works. And I get over excited about shit, especially when it's Twin Peaks. That's when I really get excited about shit.
Absolutely.
So it took a while, and we eventually sat down in different parts of the UK and on the same evening watched the pilot of Twin Peaks. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. But I guess before we get into that, you want to give your kind of first experience of Twin Peaks that you can remember and your kind of origin with it.
So back when I used to collect, I'd bought the Blu-ray box set for the first couple of seasons, the entire mystery as it was called then, which is now, of course, not entire.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd bought the entire mystery, started watching it, got through, I think, about a season and a half, I think. I know I definitely didn't finish season two. So I'd gone through all that. And at the time, I had to sell off my collection. So, of course, that was one of the Blu-rays that went. So I never got to finish it. So we come back to today, and the past few weeks, obviously started collecting again. And yeah, so this is where we basically pick back up, pick the Blu-ray back up, and we're just going ahead again.
So do you remember what year that was that you watched it?
Well, it would have been about 6 years ago, so we're talking probably 2017.
All right, that's when I first watched it.
Yeah.
So I guess that was
I think
probably
it may have even been off the back of you starting to watch it back then.
interesting. Okay, I don't remember talking to you about it at all. So it was kind of
Yeah,
that period where you kind of dropped off a bit, I guess.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So mine, I mean, I've tried in private and on YouTube to kind of get something like this going in the past. There was one with CP from Willie Screedio. We started a series called Twin Takes on Twin Peaks that lasted one episode. It was good fun, but I had computer problems. It never got restarted again.
Yeah.
I've had friends who I've shown the pilot in hopes that they'd be like, oh, let's watch some more. And they're like, yeah, that was good. And then they never want to watch it. So I've wanted to do this with someone and I wanted to revisit it myself. I first got into it in 2017 with the box set, and well, I say I fell in love with it at the beginning, and we'll get into that. Like I was a bit iffy on some aspects, but there was enough in there that I was drawn in by that I kept going. And then by the end of it, I was just a full bore like fanatic. Well, yeah, I mean, there are people who are like crazy deep on Twin Peaks. I'm not that person, but I've seen the whole show twice. But that was in 2017 because I watched it all and then I showed it to Connie immediately afterwards. So
Yeah.
like, it was a highly concentrated moment of Twin Peaks, and I've not really gone back to it in like 6 years. So I'm very excited. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. But like last night when we watched it, I was buzzing. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, I was just and there'll be a video going up at some point of me going on my journey to get some Fireball whiskey because I needed that traditional drink.
I actually had a bit of apprehension myself,
Okay.
thinking, am I going to try and will it up too much because we've built this whole thing up now where we've got to a point and saying like, what if I don't like it?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's a valid
Of course, yeah.
feeling, I guess. But no, absolutely loved it. No complaints, and we're going to get into this today, but it's we were talking pretty much, through most of it. I think we started maybe 10, 15 minutes apart, didn't we?
Yeah, we slipped out.
Yeah, we slipped out slightly, but we were talking pretty much through the whole of it, and we thought, well, we're doing this video, we need to stop talking about it because we said some valid points last night, and
Yeah.
yeah, so hopefully we'll get into that today.
I mean, it took me about 3 hours to watch the pilot, but I no qualms for me. I mean, obviously, I felt it today in work, but
Yeah,
I just, oh man, it was like a warm hug, like a
yeah,
cozy yet disconcerting hug. Like, it's like there's a warm, fuzzy feeling for me going back to Twin Peaks. And so it's been a different experience, really. And like you were saying when we were chatting back and forth as we were watching it, like it does add something when you're watching it with someone. Obviously, in
yeah.
our case, it's like we're apart kind of thing and just texting, but it does add something and it's kind of cool. And anyway, so the pilot of Twin Peaks. Do you want to get into give some of your thoughts on going back
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
this show?
So, one of the things we brought up last night was some of the starting music and the music throughout, where there's like a gentle hum throughout the
Mm,
show of suspenseful music, I guess. And then obviously at the heights of emotion, you sort of get that huge build up and the come down, as we said. And you were talking to me about last night about how David Lynch and Angelino, I can't remember his
Angelo
last
Badalamenti. Yeah.
Angela Badalamenti. They were talking about how all that score came together, and I just think it works so well. I know you said on your initial viewing that you thought it was a bit jarring. Um, and I get that because it does sound like a TV movie kind of thing that where you get that heightened emotion with all the shock and stuff. But I thought it worked really well. I really liked it, and I was saying last night how one of my favorite films is A Straight Story by David Lynch, probably his only normal film by most standards.
Mm.
Um, and Angelino Badalamenti's also does a score for that film, and the scores are very similar in tone. I noticed, and that brought home a lot of feelings for me watching that. So yeah, I love the score completely. Um, yeah, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, like well, maybe not jarring so much in that I liked it, but there's a few cues that is used over and over. So I remember when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, I get it. Like, could they not afford to make more than like 10 minutes of music? Because it just keeps recycling the same thing.
Yeah,
And I think maybe even part of me still does feel like that's a flaw to at least the pilot. But because now I'm into Twin Peaks, now I'm a fan of Twin Peaks. I love that music. So for me, it's like bring it on. Like you just lay
yeah,
it on thick. So, Laura's theme, which recurs throughout the whole thing, and like even a different kind of it's almost like a nursery rhyme melody version of it, a very soft one. And then there's different, variations on it. And there's all, I mean, I'm not a very musical person in terms of describing certain sounds and things, but there's like a kind of like a jazzy kind of thing,
yeah.
blues and stuff. And but yeah, so I mean, the music for me is like a signature part of the show. So going back now, it's kind of transformed my enjoyment of the pilot to where I'm just like loving all the, you
Yeah.
the Twin Peaks, and it's a big part of the atmosphere, I think.
There's a part where they're interviewing after they've just found out about I'm assuming we're going spoiler.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to sit here and say, Twin
Yeah,
Peaks is about a girl called Laura Palmer, because I mean, anyone who's going to watch this, if you haven't
yeah,
seen Twin Peaks, by all means, join us and kind of, come along for the ride and stuff. But I'm assuming people who watch this will have seen Twin Peaks, and we're going to be,
sure.
spoiling shit.
Yeah, so there's a scene where they've just found out Laura Palmer's died, and they're interviewing some of the people at the school, and the boyfriend, I can't recall his name. They're interviewing him, and as he says this certain word, the music just kicks in just as he's about to speak, and I thought it just worked so perfectly. It was that sort of clicking music, the one I'm
Oh
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it just worked so perfectly when that came in. I really like that.
Okay, so now you said, yeah, I actually do think there are jarring moments with the score sometimes where it will just jump in, but
Yeah,
it keeps you on your toes a little bit. Um, so God, there's just so much to get into. But what do you think of the acting? That's something I'm always intrigued by anyone who's watching Twin Peaks. I mean, you've seen it before, but let's say it's the first time. What's your take on the acting in this episode?
I mean overall great. There's of course some questionable stuff, but I think that a lot of David Lynch's characters throughout his films and TV shows do act odd anyway. So
Yeah,
you can't always tell whether it's the acting or whether it's the part,
like he wants them
I
to
think.
act like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you know?
So like the cop, for example, that cries.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great acting, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I think he kind of wants to be that over dramatic character
Yeah.
into a point where you can't really act that without looking silly. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like that. But there was a character you said last night that you thought was a
Yeah. Oh
bit
man,
off-putting.
I can't. Again, this shows I'm not the biggest of fans in terms of like knowing everything. Again, I only watched the show a few years ago, but I forget even the actor's name now. But Shelley's husband. What is his name? Leo. Leo. So it gets better as the show goes on, but he's dreadful, like profoundly awful in this episode where the scene with Shelley and he's just like, "What brand of cigarettes are those?" Oh no, just a random one. He's just like, "No, you don't get two brands of cigarettes. You only buy one brand of cigarettes. That's right." Like it's just, ugh. And it's like, do a line, drink a beer, do a line, drink a beer. Like and then I remember reading up that he's the casting director's son. And I was like, well, there you go. That's
That says it all.
no offense to the guy, but he is dreadful. I think later on he does some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I'll give him credit there. I mean, when we'll see, but like he's pretty bad in that, and he's built up to be this like holy shit when like Bobby and Shelley are driving, and he's like, "Is your old man definitely on the road?" And he sees the truck, and the music's like, like oh my god, it's like
Yeah.
the boogeyman's arrived,
Yeah.
and then it just turns out he's a bad actor. But again, the whole storyline with Shelley and her abusive husband does kind of get better.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so the acting, I think you're onto something with that. Like, I think Lynch probably likes the weirdness.
Yeah.
I think he probably looks at a performance that isn't perhaps traditionally good.
The police secretary, for example, she's, quite an overly overt, kind of vibrant character. And I think that's the way he wanted it portrayed. So
Well,
even though,
with her, I think the actress is like that. Like I've
yeah,
watched interviews, and she just is that. She's weird. I think
yeah,
there's anything wrong with saying that, and she
absolutely.
kind of is the way that she is. And I think that's probably, again, I don't recall any behind the scenes stories of why certain people were cast over others, but I think that he probably likes her uniqueness.
The
And
zaniness, yeah,
yeah, and that's, to me, that's the appeal of Twin Peaks, is that there's all these weird characters in
absolutely.
many
Yeah,
different shades and forms. So you take like Benjamin Horn, who runs the Great Northern Hotel,
yeah,
and in this pilot episode, he's trying to secure the Norwegian support for this estate that he's building. I mean, I forget the actor's name again. See again. So this is this because you before we were recording, you were trying to get like names down. Um, what is his name? Well, Benjamin Horn is the character anyway. But he's a great actor, and like his performance is just airtight. Like he's such a great performer. So you have varying shades. It's not like Okay, so let's go to this. The moment when Laura Palmer's parents find out that she's died. That was interesting for me. It hit a bit different this time around.
yeah,
How did you feel about that? The kind of the building realization that their daughter was dead without even a confirmation of it. Like for Leland Palmer, her father, a cop arrives and he kind of just senses it.
yeah,
Whereas, the mother's just on the phone, but she's already kind of looked in all the places where her daughter could be that morning, and she just gets a bad feeling,
yeah,
and then it explodes
yeah,
quite
yeah.
sharply.
The screaming.
Mm,
So I think the dad acts quite reasonable, which is quite weird. Obviously he goes to the morgue, doesn't he, pretty much straight after,
mm,
to see the body. But yeah, the mother obviously panicking, and as you would. But then obviously the realization afterwards and the build up of all that, just a big outcry.
mm.
So yeah, it seemed realistic enough to me.
It's Grace Sabisky is the actor, and like she always dances a fine line to me between overacting
Yeah.
and then hitting something genuinely powerful.
Mm.
So for me, it's not. I don't think she gives a completely great performance throughout the whole show, but there are just these moments of like fucking hell, like she really,
Yeah.
like the scene afterwards where she's kind of just comatose on the sofa,
Yeah.
and she's saying, "Who's that upstairs?" And then she's like, "I can tell by the sounds that it's not her." Like she's just heartbreaking in that scene. I think she's so good. So,
Yeah.
but there are just times where she's screaming, and it feels a bit off at times. Um, one performance I wanted to give this guy a name check, not that I even know his actor the actor's name or the character's name because he isn't really in the show again. Is the principal who announces Laura's death.
Yes.
That little scene where he's kind of like trying to compose himself, but he's kind of like his voice
Yeah,
is
and
breaking a little bit.
breaks down crying afterwards when it comes off.
Now, when he breaks down, he's like, "Oh my God!" Like that's a bit over. But like the
Yeah,
actual delivery of the thing, I thought was
yeah.
really, really well done.
I'm trying to
Um,
recall what else I'd seen him in. I still haven't looked it up.
no, he looks vaguely familiar. I think I've seen him in something, but just one of those faces who you recognize and they pop up
I
in
think he
random
might be
things, I
in
guess.
Demolition Man.
I haven't seen that in years. I couldn't.
Yeah, he might be Demolition Man.
Yeah, but I mean, so the whole show is about the death of this girl, Laura Palmer, the homecoming queen. I love that visual, just the picture of her at prom. There's
Yeah,
something about it. I don't know. There's something like she's beautiful, obviously, but there's like a sadness to it. I don't know. Like maybe it's
yeah,
because she's dead already, but like it's like an
yeah. There's a
iconic.
shot where it sort of zooms into the trophy cabinet,
Mm,
which is I think I sent to you last night actually,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's when obviously you get Laura's theme come on, and
Yeah,
it just zooms in on the picture. I thought that was really powerful.
yeah, yeah. And so, God, yeah, so the pilot is like an hour and a half long. It was, I'm not sure if they did like 2 hour pilots generally back then. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Twin Peaks was kind of an anomaly. They really had to push for it to get on air, basically, and not a lot of people believed in it. And then it kind of changed TV forever because it was like cinematic and did things that TV shows didn't normally do.
Yeah,
But the pilot, we didn't watch this, but the pilot had like an extra ending for like the European audiences. They could release it on video as a movie, which kind of just wraps up the whole story in like 15 minutes. It's not very good, but it is kind of a very cool hour and a half preview of the show. It kind of sets
yeah.
up everything, and then you get the ball rolling when the show continues. Um,
What's quite interesting, you don't get our main character till probably at least 45 minutes into the episode.
I think it's 30 minutes, yeah,
Is
or
it
maybe
30
maybe
minutes?
35.
Yeah,
Yeah, feels like longer though because there's just so much to be set up in characters
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
and that introduction. Carl
yeah.
McLaughlin, Special Agent Dale Cooper. That's just a great. Have you seen that video he posted recently where he recreated that on like Instagram or something? Like
No, I haven't seen it.
yeah,
No.
yeah. I think it was like maybe I don't know the 30th anniversary of the pilot. I think, and
Oh, okay.
he did the whole thing, and yeah, it's really cool.
Brilliant.
He's great online with stuff like that. But it's like it just sets him up really well in this one shot, just in the car with Diane on the. What are your thoughts on the Special Agent Dale Cooper character in general? As we
Yeah, I really like him. As I say, I can't remember much at all about the further episodes, but he seemed more because obviously we haven't had any dream sequences yet. I remember the dream sequences fairly well,
sure,
that
yeah,
are coming up like in later episodes, and I couldn't remember if there was one in the pilot, so I was kind of waiting for one in the first in this pilot. Obviously there wasn't one in this because, as you say, they were trying to get this aired, so they didn't want to jar people, I guess.
I think the Red Room sequence was filmed for the pilot. I think it's
Oh
that kind
wow,
of that ending, and then once they got the green light for the show, they took that and then used it
right.
later on and stuff. So
I
yeah,
see. Yeah, but yeah, I really like his character, and he seems like he would be an FBI agent. He's got that demeanor about him, which is
yeah,
very very straightforward and to the point. Which from what we've seen from other shows and films and stuff, I guess FBI agents are portrayed like that because that's their job. But yeah, I think his character's great. He works well with the other sheriff that's in the show. They seem to gel off each other quite well. So I like their relationship already, and I want to see
yeah.
how that builds. Because I know obviously they could butt heads further on. I can't remember if they do, but it seems like they could butt heads at some point, maybe. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that grows and how his character, because the one of the revealing moments in this is obviously when he pulls the letter out of the fingernail, and then we start to see, well, maybe this isn't just a killing or an accidental killing or something like this. This is something more sinister.
Could be linked. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, linked to something else. The build up of that, and I can't wait to see where that goes. That whole mystery, because it's just adding more depth to the story.
that's something I wanted to ask you. Do you know who killed Laura Palmer?
Nope,
You don't. Okay,
nope,
and you don't even know if you've seen that reveal.
mate. I thought there was a werewolf.
I was going to bring that up. There was no way I was going to drop that. We were talking. He's like, "Is there like a werewolf or something?" What the fuck are you talking about? Werewolf. Okay, that's interesting. That's cool. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got no idea.
because the pilot's definitely like setting up like there's moments where characters linger in a scene and you think, "Oh, what are they doing there?" You know, like
Mm.
what's his name? Dr. Jacoby.
I've
He's the
got
guy.
my suspicions already,
Oh, okay. Well, we'll
but
go get.
we're a long way off from finding out, I
Of
assume.
course, yeah. That was one thing I loved about when I did my video series as I was going through it, because you can see in real time what I'm thinking about what's going to happen and stuff.
Yeah,
That's just interesting to me. But like
because the
Dr.
show's already sort of giving you some suspects, hasn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So
And Dr. Jacoby, the psychiatrist who like this is something I never noticed before in the hospital, I guess, the morgue when Cooper's going to go down and see the body,
yeah,
and he runs after them and he's got these things in his ears and he's just like grinning like, yeah, I used
yeah,
to. It's just like, what are you grinning for? I never noticed he's got like a tie with like a Hawaiian dancer with like the grass skirt. And it's a
mm.
physical grass skirt, and he's like stroking underneath the skirt on his tie. Have you not seen? Don't notice that. I was like, what the
No, I didn't
fuck?
notice
Like,
that.
what the fuck is he doing? Like, he's just stroking like lovingly on the. It was very strange. And he's a great character, but it's a very odd introduction where he just doesn't seem too perturbed about the fact that this young girl, and that's the whole thing. It's showing you like how every character is reacting to it.
Yeah,
Like Josie, who runs the sawmill, or like it's kind of in her name, and then you have like Catherine Martell, I think is her name, who it's a whole twisted family history there, but she wants to shut down the sawmill for the day in kind of memory of Laura.
yeah,
So you see all the different people and how they react to it, and how they maybe don't seem as broken up about it.
yeah.
And that was one thing when I first watched it. I thought Bobby, his reaction was a bit like, so your girlfriend's died, and his reaction wasn't that. I don't know. It was weird. What do you think of that in the library
Yeah, well, that was, I think, one of the scenes we were talking about earlier.
with the music? Yeah, but like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird one for me that, and but it's different for me now because I've seen his whole character arc
Mm,
and I know everything, and so I'm a bit more forgiving because he does have much better stuff and
yeah,
gives much better performances. But I do think it's a bit of a weird, and again, probably the choice of Lynch to act
yeah,
that way.
yeah.
Like,
That's it.
and at the end of the episode when they're barking in the cell,
Yeah,
I remember when I first saw that, I thought, what the fuck? Like, it's weird. Like,
maybe that's where I got werewolves from.
that is a good actually. So the other bully guy, like the dick, what's his name? Mike. I
Yeah,
think he was a much better actor. Like, he's
mm,
very convincing dick.
yeah,
Yeah, Bobby, he has his moments, but that I did notice in the barking scene. Dana Ashbrook, who plays Bobby, he's really committed to the barking. But the
mm.
other actor, you can tell he's not as into it, and he kind of like turns his head away at the moment. You can tell you can feel the embarrassment on him. Like, another funny moment was when Cooper's looking at the body, and there's all these fluorescent lights kind of flickering, which is like an on-set malfunction. And Lynch just liked it and just says, "Yeah, just film it." And like the orderly is just there, and Cooper's like, "Can you leave the room, please?" And he's like, "Jim, no, can you leave us, please?" And oh yeah, sure. And that was a real mistake. So it speaks to like the
That's
actors
the
who
real
just
sort of quirkiness that he likes. So I think so.
no.
I think that's brilliant.
But you think most people will just laugh and go like,
Yeah,
okay, this, but this. So I love that they kept that in, and it's kind of a little. You'd almost think it was meant to be that way, um, and that's kind of yeah. It's just the weirdness of it all is captivating to watch at times. I think.
yeah. I think there's so many characters introduced in this first episode, and I know you've got a decent length of time, but there's so many characters to introduce. I don't think you're going to get the best out of everyone
True.
because it's like striking lightning twice. But I think the main characters, at least for the most part, did a great job. I mean, obviously Dal Cooper is brilliant.
Yeah.
You've got all the surrounding cast around him that are great as well. So I think there's definitely issues with some characters, but obviously that's going to get ironed out when they all start to gel together and the characters become more fleshed out.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the Sheriff Truman. That's just one of the great bromances for me. I love that
Yeah,
duo and how it starts, and it's great to kind of for me to go back to the beginning now And I like when he's like, okay, I'm going to be straight with you. Like the FBI's taken over now.
Yeah.
Some local police are not good with that, and he's like, no, it's fine. You're here to help. And like they just get on well, and always like the donuts at the end of the episode
Yeah.
when Cooper's like, this is great. It's like, how many people even work at that police station? And there's like about
Yeah.
50, or we lay out 50 donuts every night, you know. It's just it's so strange. And Cooper, like, it's interesting because again, I've seen everything, but little things like when he finds the letter in the fingernail and he's
Yeah.
just like literally leaning over Laura's body with a big grin on his face, like, oh, this is exciting. You know?
Yeah.
And I guess for him it is because he has to be clinical and not feel the emotion of it. But what was that bit when I think it was Bobby when he's interrogating him and then he just says, you never loved her anyway, and walks off. It's like, what the fuck? Like that's a bit of a
Yeah.
sinister little dit. Like, is this, you know, so he's such a fascinating character, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, one thing that I remember noticing this again when the last time I watched the pilot, which was there's so many like intersecting like relationship dramas in this pilot alone. Like there's like, okay, so here's this person and they're with this is his girlfriend, but really he's with this girl, and then
Yeah.
really she's with him, and then even at the very end of the episode, it's like, oh, and by the way, the sheriff is seeing Josie, and then Catherine Martell is like, it's just there's so many different like people like sleeping with each other and like just cheating, and it's just like a minefield of which I'm sure you don't even have a grasp on yet because it's again just
Yeah. I
all
mean,
just
there's so many
bombardments
different
of yeah.
characters to get to know, isn't there, in that short space of time? And I guess it is feature length, so you would expect that from a movie as well. But um, I think that because of the way it slowly builds up, I think you're introducing characters at different sections, and then you jump back to certain characters, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this character now, and then yeah, so it's just a lot of jumping between characters.
Yeah,
It's just not all
definitely.
characters together, so you sort of got to remember each person's name and all that sort of stuff. So especially when you jump from sort of the investigation that's going on to the lumber mill,
Yeah,
and then you've got the meeting that's going on,
yeah.
and then all the stuff happening at the school, and there's loads of stuff happening. So obviously that winds down, I assume, when you get to the later episodes, and you're just going to have
Yeah,
certain sections in each episode for each character. So yeah, I
I,
guess there's a lot to introduce, isn't there?
kind of. Yeah, I like one thing I love about the show is that it's about this town where everyone's a little bit strange and unusual.
Yeah,
And an FBI agent comes in, and he himself is a little strange and unusual, and he loves it there, and he loves all the quirks of everyone. And he's so, I mean, he's fascinated by them, but he's also fascinated by like the trees, for fuck's sake. Like, you know, you gotta tell him what kind of trees these are. You know, like
yeah,
he finds the joy in like the simplest of things. Even on the opening sequence of his character when he's speaking to Diane, and he's like, if you're ever in like Highway 2, like, you know, on the Lamplighter Inn, it's really worth stopping for the cherry pie.
yeah.
It's just,
One thing I'm very intrigued about is if we ever get to meet Diane.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's so many little like things like
If
that.
Diane's actually a person,
There's that too. That's something
because
I wondered
you never
at the
actually,
beginning.
from what I remember, you never actually hear from Diane.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's definitely a mystery there in terms of a little mystery. The whole
Mm.
show is full of little mysteries, and then the
Yeah, of
bigger
course, yeah,
the bigger ones and stuff. Um, I mean, I just love the whole. I like murder mystery stories. I like the intrigue of it, and oh, this is one thing I was going to say that I wanted to mention because again, there's just so much. There's so much as the pilot itself, and then with my personal experience and stuff. And I don't want to like spoil anything for you either.
yeah.
I didn't think you knew as little as you do, which is even more interesting actually. Well, okay, so while I'm thinking, who do you think it is, or like what you said, you had a few ideas of like certain things.
I don't know. I feel like there's too many obvious characters at the moment.
Mm, sure, yeah,
There's a character that enters in the last scene, um, which I know you told me the name last night, but I can't recall exactly who it is. It's the
yeah.
one I thought was the werewolf.
Well, I mean,
Is
he's
it
in.
Grey Man, is it, or something?
Well, his name's Bob,
Bob.
but I mean, he's not really. He's in the
Yeah,
reflection of a mirror out of focus, which is
yeah,
a mistake to begin with. He
yeah,
does become a focal point of the show later on, but I mean, it's not really meant to be a reveal of sorts. But
yeah. But no, I think there's a lot of obvious characters at the moment
mm,
who the point in the direction at. Obviously, the psychiatrist being a bit of an off ball and
yeah,
like having no emotion when you'd think that would be the one person that would have emotion.
And being the Laura's
Yeah,
psychiatrist,
exactly that. Yeah.
yeah,
So, there's a few people pointing at the moment, but then you've also got this other thing going off where this lady's obviously been brutally attacked. Um, and they've not really delved into that yet in this pilot. I mean, they've shown sort of the aftermath of it in
yeah,
the hospital, but we don't really hear anything else about that in this episode. So there's
yeah,
another whole thing going off there. So I think if it had have been any of the main central characters that we've seen so far, then maybe it wouldn't have pointed at them yet, because there's obviously this witness as such. If it is even connected, it could be completely separate. I don't know.
yeah. It's almost a little bit more brutal when you see the other girl who is found alive, Renette
Yeah,
Pulowski, I think her name is, and they say she's been raped, and the nurse is like, yes, multiple times, and
yeah.
that just puts a shiver up you, and then she's black eye and she's out of it and stuff.
And again, the fact that she didn't have a letter under her nail points to the fact that it might not be the same killer or the
Yeah,
same attacker. So
yeah. I do remember commenting on it the last time I watched it. They don't really mention how they found the train car, the abandoned train car. Like
yes,
what
yeah,
led them to that. I don't remember if that's cleared up. So there's, I've probably watched the pilot like 3 or 4 times now, but like once we start moving forward, it'll be
yeah,
loads of things I've forgotten about as well. So I'm kind of keen to
yeah. Of course, yeah,
see some of the other dots connect and things like that. The comedy, it's a really funny show in a very offbeat kind of way, almost in like a
yeah.
British way, in a sense. It's kind of deadpan, and just like when they're at the town meeting, and Cooper's trying to get a lay of all the characters and stuff, and he's like, "Who's the lady with the log? We call her the log lady." I know the simplicity of that just I find it funny.
Yeah.
And when he's telling her about like Catherine Martell, the original deep freeze, just kind of a good nickname, I think.
Yeah.
So I like all that stuff. Just,
And you've got the characters like the cop that's constantly crying. And even though it's a sad moment, you can tell it's
yeah,
obviously meant to be heightened for that comedic effect.
yeah. I mean, and Andy is definitely leaned into with comedic purposes for most of his
Yeah.
character's arc and the whole. Not that he has an arc, well, he kind of does, but there's just yeah, man, so
And
many
the scene
characters
with the
and
coffee cup where she stabs the coffee cup and it obviously all pours out all over the papers.
yeah,
I found
Audrey.
that quite funny, yeah.
She's an interesting one. Yeah, man, there's just so many characters. It is crazy that so much is covered. And I was thinking, like, man, if this was a movie, would they
Yeah.
be able to wrap it up that quickly? But I guess it's where the difference is with TV and films and stuff. But um, yeah, I mean, I could just talk about every little scene, every moment, but there's only so much time, and we want to get cracking on with the rest of it, I think.
Yeah. Chronologically, where does the film actually sit chronologically? Is that like a prequel to the show?
Oh, you mean Fire Walk with Me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I meant just like the pilot being an hour and a half, feeling like a movie.
Gotcha.
But Fire Walk with Me is a prequel.
Yes.
So Fire Walk with Me, I believe, is the 2 weeks leading up to Laura's death.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
and it's oh man, it's a fucking it's definitely not one to watch before the show because it spoils things, I guess. But I can't wait to revisit. I've only seen that once, I think, maybe.
You've played Life is Strange, haven't you? You've seen how they do the prequel. I wonder if that was a bit
I
inspired by that.
I think it was. I haven't played the prequel yet because I'm still emotionally devastated at the end.
Yeah.
I love that game.
Yeah,
Let's just get to that for 1 second. Like, what spoilers for Life is Strange for the next minute? What choice did you make at the end of the game?
I've done both because I've played it multiple times.
Yeah, but what was your
And
first one?
initially,
Yeah,
I saved Chloe.
I did too.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, when that thing came up, I'm like, oh my God. And I sat there for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I
Just
was like, fuck it, kill them all. Save Chloe. She's been
what
through
what
enough.
what I know, right? What tipped it for me was I thought, what would I do if that was Connie? Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, I don't know, maybe that game's great. Anyway, and that actually
I don't know if you've played the second season of Life is
no, I've
Strange,
got
where
it,
it's
I
a
think.
completely different story.
Yeah.
There's some allusions to Life is Strange, and there's a really cool scene which obviously I won't spoil.
Yeah.
But yes, it harkens back to that, and it's quite cool. So yeah, definitely play that.
Yeah, when I played Life is Strange, there's definitely Twin Peaks feelings, and there's even a few Easter eggs along the way. So that I think the
Yeah.
prequel thing is probably quite inspired by Fire Walk with Me in that sense. I think you even see in one of the toilets Fire Walk with Me. There is
Oh, really?
a very
That's
yeah
cool.
yeah. There's some distinct references in there. Yeah, the film is great. It's a very heavy one, heavier than the show, I think. But
Yeah.
that's where things. I view Twin Peaks as kind of a trilogy. I
Yeah.
just season 1 and 2 I kind of think of as the original series. And then there's Fire Walk with Me. Then there's The Return, season 3, and they are kind of three distinct. I mean, they flow quite nicely together, but they're quite different as well. And so
Yeah.
I'm very keen to continue moving forward. Trying to think, is there anything else to natter on about with
I'm
the
really
plot?
intrigued now as to where the killer is found, as to whether it ended with season 2 or if it goes into the mystery, the new series.
Well, the
Obviously, you don't
killer.
need to tell me. Yeah, the killer. Yeah, sorry.
Mm,
So I'm intrigued that whether they left it on a cliffhanger back when they finished filming, or if it's now been revealed in the new mystery. So I'm quite intrigued about that. Obviously, you don't
sure.
have to say.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm intrigued about that.
Yeah, I could say some stuff, but I guess it's better to leave it. But
Yeah,
my very first thing I ever saw at Twin Peaks was years ago. It was like I think it was like best TV shows of the 90s or something. It was like one of those shit list shows where like Z-list British celebrities, like the editor of Heat magazine or whatever, talks about movies and whatever for
yeah.
whatever reason, and they talk about Twin Peaks and they show the ending of the whole show, which is like
Oh wow.
it's a pretty famous ending. So I'd seen that image, and so I had that in my head as I was watching, but it didn't quite piece together for me. So
Yeah,
didn't spoil things too much, but yeah, I won't dive into any of that because I'm intrigued to hear your reactions in real time. So I guess we should say as we wrap up here, we're not going to do one for every episode. We're not going to have a schedule or like because I just feel like it would be constricting, and um, our schedules are not going to line up all the time either. But I think at the very least, once we finish season 1, we should do something. Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
but who knows? We'll just play it by ear. Really, we're not going to try and because I think for me, I kind of get over ambitious about shit, and so we'll
yeah.
just
Let's
play
just
it.
see what it takes us, and then
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Well, this has worked out well. So I finished work late, and we managed to do this without too much of a problem. So
Yeah.
it's kind of doable to just sit down and have a chat. I'm trying to think, if there's anything else to cover really without just going into minutia and stuff. Um, yeah, not really. Well, I do like the first scene in the bar with Julie Cruz singing basically the theme song of the show, which is the song
Yeah.
"Falling." She's just got such an amazing voice, and like the way that kind of just oh, here's Julie Cruz singing a couple of songs from the soundtrack,
Yeah.
and that is, I mean, I don't think there's many songs per se, but she does her music and songs appear later on in very impactful moments. So that's another
What do you
part of
just
the
quickly? What
identity of the show for me is her
Sure.
voice.
What do you make of the intro? Like the opening credits. I'm
I,
assuming that's the opening credits to each episode, but does it ring true to the show at all? Really?
in what sense?
It just seems like a very generic put together intro
Ah, I
with
love it.
the saw.
Yeah. Oh,
Is the sawmill quite central to the story, or
no, I wouldn't say so. And I do think once with the series starts, it does
yeah?
change. It's not
Oh,
you
okay,
you
right,
do get the waterfall. That's always
yeah,
there, I think. But yeah, I think it's like the bird and the title screen is like the road leading in, like Welcome to Twin Peaks. That's the
yeah,
main. So the soul coming down is just in the pilot, I think. I like it.
yeah,
Connie hates the fact that I would always watch it. She
yeah,
said, "Listen, let me skip it." I was like, "No, it's part of the mood. I have to
yeah,
settle into Twin Peaks." Like she's like,
yeah.
"It's 3 minutes long," and I'm like, "No, it's staying on, and I'm gonna watch every."
Yeah, I think it's the same with Hannah. Like Breaking Bad set the standard where it's just do 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 do. That's it.
Did you watch Better Call Saul?
Yeah,
That's another one. It's like what, it's like a 7 second like
that's it.
don't start. Brilliant. Game of Thrones took the piss. Not that I watched all of it, but like
Yeah,
that felt like a 7 minute intro every time.
yeah, yeah.
I would skip that one. But
Walking
Twin
Dead as
Peaks.
well. Actually, Walking Dead was the same.
Yeah, I trailed off with Walking Dead after season 7, I think.
Same.
Um,
Yep.
see, that's another thing I do love about Twin Peaks. It's not something that went on forever.
Yeah.
Even though the way it ended was not really the way they wanted it to end, it kind of got taken away from them in a way. But that adds to the mystique a bit, that it was kind of fleeting.
Yeah.
And so, and like the first season's like 7 or 8 episodes, I think. So it's very short,
Yeah.
first season, and quite compact. Anyway, so we'll wrap it up there. I guess I'll just touch on, we're gonna do a series of like a sister series, which will be called Tulpas. And we'll get to Tulpas in Twin Peaks at some point. But like they'll be like, how do I describe it really? Anything and everything, basically. So like a little vlog here and there, might be some guests. It'll just be different from this, which is the main show, I guess. So I've got a couple of vlogs I filmed already. I got quite over exuberant and excited about starting this. But I have loved it. I was so excited last night watching it, just getting back to it and doing this. It was kind of really fun to just get started, really.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to getting more into it. I was itching last night to watch some more, to be honest.
I might dig into it after we finish recording before I go to bed, I think. Because it's yeah. And I want to, for me, I'll lag behind on stuff, but I really want to, yeah, it's good shit. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching or listening. If you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, man, I think I'm good.
Oh, trying to think of a random quote to end with. I can't think of one. That's typical. Yeah, no. Let's try and think of a quote for each episode to end with.
She's dead, wrapped in plastic.
Perfect. I was going to mention that, and it just didn't come up. She's dead, wrapped in plastic. Iconic. We'll leave it there. Thank you for watching.